I remember when the Phoenix Suns were starting point guards named Isaiah Canaan, Eli Akobo, and Tyler Ulis. The search for a point guard felt never ending, but last season, a savior joined named Ricky Rubio, a long-haired playmaker who showed how big of a difference even an average starting point guard would make on a team that desperately needed it. But the Suns and James Jones were still not satisfied. They moved Ricky and forward Kelly Oubre for future Hall of Famer and one of the top point guards ever, Chris Paul. So the question is, how does Chris Paul change this team in ways that other players couldn't? Why was James Jones willing to put it all on the line for a 35-year-old point guard making $40+ million a year? Let's look at some plays that showcase what makes Chris Paul great. And because he's one of the best clutch players in the NBA, let's look specifically at clutch plays that show his offensive versatility and genius level playmaking. And look, we all know he can pass, so let's focus right now on how he scores. First, let's go back to his time in Houston in the 2018 playoffs. Here we'll watch him score 6 clutch baskets in a row, utilizing a few different tactics. First, we have a high screen and roll with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert guarding and shooters flanking. Gobert drops way back and Paul gets the screen well above the three-point line. You can see Donovan trying to fight over the screen because the screen is high enough for Chris to step into a three. What do you do when they go over? Well, you snake. Snaking the screen caused Donovan to take too long to get back into it, and now Gobert is caught between tagging the roll man and guarding Paul. And if Chris is this deep, it's already too late. Paul is too good and too crafty to not score when the defense is clearly between two different decisions. This next play is simple. Push the ball in transition and find the shooter. This just showcases that Chris has the ability to be effective on and off the ball, and he can hit the catch and shoot. But this next play is art. The screen is set at the top of the key, slightly to the right. Paul snaked on the last pick, and Gobert knows that, so Chris does something different. He attacks hard on the drive and freezes Gobert with an insane hesitation dribble, and once Gobert bites, Paul has him. The last thing Utah wanted to do here was switch, but Chris used that hesitation dribble to force it and immediately brings Gobert out into space. Now it's over. Chris Paul kills switches, and in this case, he opts for a sidestep three with Gobert trying to guard both the shot and the drive. Splash.
Paul inside on Gobert, walking the tightrope.
The next play, we have Chris being guarded by his new teammate, Jay Crowder. The first screen, Jay goes under, and Chris clearly wants that mid-range shot, and if he can get Jay to go over, he can get that shot. So what does he do? He just goes for the re-screen. Gobert is playing deep drop coverage again, and Chris Paul is one of the best mid-range shooters ever, and it's over. Keep in mind, this video is about scoring, but if Gobert adjusted here and hard-hedged or switched onto Chris, that ball is going to the big man under the rim, and it's a dunk. Pick your poison, really. On this play, the Rockets push it in transition and get nothing, so Chris goes back to his bread and butter, the screen and roll. Royce does an excellent job of fighting over the screen and making it tough to pull up for the mid-range, so Chris, seeing the shot clock winding down, pulls him out into isolation and hits a crazy tough and definitely lucky banked in three, or Sapo as my grandpa would say. But as I always say, it's no coincidence that the people who work the hardest get the luckiest. The last one in this series will look familiar. It's a simple high screen, no hard hedge, no switch, and splash. This was 6 clutch shots in a row in a playoff game to showcase his offensive versatility. You might say, well, that's 2 years ago. He's older now. Well, here's the thing. Playing in Houston made Chris Paul arguably one of the best players in the league in isolation, and he took that to OKC. Now, when he wants to score in the clutch, he barely needs a screen. Here he is against his old team, Houston, in the playoffs, starting the same way, an off-ball three, this time contested, but no problem. Just look at this one. There's no analysis here. This is just one of the best offensive players of all time, making an insanely difficult fall-away sidestep three-pointer against a guy who is much bigger than him. The analysis is Chris Paul is insane. The reason you see so much isolation against the Rockets is because they switch everything. Here, after a series of switches, Chris gets isolated against arguably one of the best defenders in the playoffs, Robert Covington. Chris sizes him up, fakes the drive, and as soon as Rocco slides his feet back, Chris launches one over him. Only the slightest bit of space was needed. If the Suns have two players that can kill switches, it's going to be brutal to guard. Once again, here he is isolated at the top of the key against Rocco. All it takes for Chris to get the space he needs is two dribbles. He jabs a few times to sell the drive, then one hard dribble inside the line, and one insane between the legs step back to make a three against a defender that's 6 inches taller than him. This is the type of shot that only the best of the best can make. And here's some extra ISOs against his old teammate James Harden, just for good measure. Whether it be using the screen, isolating, passing, or even just standing off the ball, Chris Paul brings elite level decision making and skills to a team that needs it. Chris Paul is a glitch that neutralizes all types of defenses, and next to an elite scorer like Devin Booker and an elite rim runner like DeAndre Ayton, don't be surprised if the Suns have a top 3 offense in the NBA next season. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out all of our other videos.